What's up, mama? Do you notice that your little one is sensitive to loud noises? Do you see that they're often covering their ears, or do they startle with the start of a blender or the vacuum? If so, stick around because today I am here with Miss Rachel again, and we're gonna be breaking down the auditory sensory system and what you can do to help your kiddo process this information so their body and everything feels good. Coming up. What's up, mama, and welcome back to the Kids OT Help channel. If you're new here, my name is Nicole. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, a mommy, a certified lactation counselor, and the whole entire point of this channel is to help make motherhood just a little bit easier on you. So consider subscribing for weekly helpful tips. And today I am back with the lovely Rachel from the Sensory Project. And she's gonna be breaking down the auditory sensory system for us, telling us what we should look for, things we can do to help our kiddo process this information. So if you haven't seen Rachel, I will link our series. We have a whole sensory system series, and she's joined me for about half of these videos now. So I will link it up here so you can check it out after this video. But Rachel, why don't you tell the people a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Okay, so I am an occupational therapy assistant and I work with children with special needs. And I also have a business called the Sensory Project where I empower and inspire families and therapists to understand sensory processing challenges a little bit differently. So I love the sensory system, and I'm so glad that I'm here to help the sensory system series and kind of give you guys a little bit more insight into the auditory system.
Super excited. So why don't we dive in by talking about what exactly the auditory system is? It sounds pretty self-explanatory, but just go for it.
Yes, so the auditory system is how we hear, right? And so there's so much more that goes into it rather than just what we hear on a daily basis. So right now I can hear Nicole talking and I hear the refrigerator in the background, and I'm able to tune out the unnecessary information and focus on what is important right now. So what most people don't think about is kind of how the brain processes what you are hearing. And if you are not able to filter out the unnecessary auditory input, you're not going to be able to focus on anything at all. So that is what we focus on in occupational therapy, is helping the brain make sense of the messages that are coming in the ears and have an appropriate adaptive response.
I love it. So as you've kind of followed along, if you've been with us through this series, we're talking about like under responsiveness versus over responsiveness. So Rachel will kind of break down quickly what the difference is and then kind of dive into what you would look for to see a kiddo who's under responsive versus over responsive when it comes to our auditory sensory processing.
Yes. So over responsive is typically what we see most often with our kiddos who struggle with auditory processing. So these are the kiddos who have big reactions to what we would consider normal everyday sounds, like the vacuum cleaner or the toilet flushing or the blender turning on. They have a big reaction. They are anxious. They are scared. They're uncomfortable by this auditory input in their environment. And then you have the under-responsive kiddos who seek that auditory input because their brain needs more in order to feel regulated. So they are making noises, they are constantly loud, they are pushing people to get a sound out of them in order to hear something and get more input into their brain.
Very well put. What we typically see is that kiddos are over responsive. Less likely to be under responsive. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but likely you are having difficulty if your kiddo is over responsive and you'd be saying, what can I do to help my kiddo feel regulated? Because in life, the vacuum is gonna come on, the blender's gonna turn on, the toilet's gonna flush. So help us understand how we can make this more acceptable for our kiddos.
So number one, I would start by not eliminating these activities. So don't stop vacuuming, don't stop using the blender. You know, talk about preparing your child for these sounds, you know, and incorporate these activities into new games and new fun challenges. So you can have your child help you vacuum. You can have your child get a pretend vacuum to vacuum with you. You can verbally say, hey, I'm gonna vacuum today. Would you like to help me? Would you like to be around? Would you like to be here? So just make sure that you are not completely modifying their environment so there are no sounds whatsoever. So that's the first step. And then the second step, I love therapeutic listening programs. So things like advanced brain technology, the listening program, ILS, the integrated listening system. There are a lot of different options out there, but it's music that is acoustically modified to help your brain kind of rewire and be able to process that input a little bit better.
Ooh, that sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
If you guys want to learn more about that, I'll be sure to put the information in the description box. I'll link it so you can click over and check it out and learn more about that. But that's very cool.
Yeah. So another thing that we can do for the kiddos who are very sensitive to auditory input is by providing a barrier to that input. So we like to use noise canceling headphones. There are a lot of options out there. Earplugs are great, and even mic systems for in the classroom that the teacher has. It's a necklace or it goes in their ear so they can hear what the teacher is saying and process it a little bit better.
On that note, I really like, so headphones could go either way. So if you have a kid that's under responsive and wants all the noise, but it's distracting to other people, headphones could also be a great thing for them too, right? Because then they can listen to the music or whatever it is and get that sensation, and it's localized to their ears as opposed to the entire environment.
Yeah, and things like humming can actually be really grounding for these kiddos who are seeking auditory input.
Absolutely.
So as with other sensory systems, it's important to empathize with your child. Obviously, this input is giving them severe anxiety, and we need to be able to understand that and kind of have an idea of what they're going through on a daily basis, because their body is uncomfortable, whether they're an infant, whether they're a toddler. However old you are, your body isn't processing this input properly. So being able to empathize and understand, I always like to give the example of nails on a chalkboard. Think about that visceral reaction that you have of like the goosebumps going down your back. That could be what your child feels when the vacuum turns on or the toilet flushes. So make sure that you empathize with them and you help them understand that it's okay to feel this way, but we want to help you have a more appropriate adaptive response. And so by doing that, we're gonna incorporate into play activities. We're gonna talk about preparing these kiddos for the sounds so they know, okay, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna feel okay.
And as Rachel mentioned earlier, you know, preparing our kiddos for the sounds, something that came to mind that I think goes along beautifully with this is giving your kiddo the control. So do you want to turn on the blender? Do you want to be in charge of flushing the toilet so that they can kind of mentally prepare for what is coming next and they're in control of exactly the moment it happens?
Yes, giving them control is huge. And maybe a countdown, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. Should we turn on some music while we're doing the blending or whatever it is? So,
all right, mamas, I hope you found this information helpful. And again, I'm so grateful that Rachel's here to share her knowledge with us. And as always, I will link her information in the description box below, because if you follow her on Instagram, you're getting gold. You're getting all of this information and so much more. And she has other ways in which you can work with her if you want to check that out as well. So as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.